morning, guys.
Good morning.
So, in our last session, we have discussed about NAT instance, NAT gateway, and flow logs, how to enable flow logs, and network ACL. Right? So, any questions on that previous session for me, guys? So, whoever not attended session on Saturday, so I hope you guys gone through the recorded video. And did you get any chance to perform this task?
Yes, Avinash, I did.
Okay.
I posted some questions, Avinash, on
I
Slack.
replied,
Yeah,
and do
yeah.
bit R&D, very bit R&D. Just try to Google that question before posting. Why? Because the topics we already discussed, that questions also you are posting.
I think this ping, right? ICMP, did we discuss that? Because I do not remember, right?
Yes, we did that.
We configure this reply and request both. Um, I don't know because maybe.
Okay. So, for example, let me Google the same question. How to ping an EC2 instance?
Avinash, I did that, and after that I configured, right. So I was able to ping Google from my private subnet EC2 instance, right. The thing that I was missing was I was the same security group. I have to update for the net instance as well because the traffic was going through net instance. But now the question is why this reply thing is making any impact, right? Because if I remove that, even that it is not making any impact. I am still able to ping Google from my private subnet instance.
So one is pinging to the EC2 instance, another one is pinging from the EC2 instance.
Okay.
For example, I can take command prompt and I can ping google.com. I'm able to ping. Okay, so for example, so I want to ping the same machine. So ping from another machine 192.168.0.138. Say it's giving reply. So the same machine I'm pinging, in same machine I'm pinging. So one is out, another one is in. So that's why if you open echo reply and echo request, both works.
Okay. But I am able to ping even if I remove this reply, echo reply from my net
Have you
instance.
removed request?
No, no, I just removed reply only.
Yeah, reply means you are. That's what I mentioned sometime back. So from outside network, try to ping the EC2 instance after removing the request.
Outside the AWS network?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have any EC2 instance in public subnet, do it like take an EC2 instance. For example, this is your IP address. So now try to ping this without opening anything. Open echo reply. Are you able to?
Okay. Okay.
Echo request. Are you able to? Then you will come to know what is this echo reply and echo request. Bit R&D is always I'll suggest you to you. I personally suggest to you. Why? Because for every
Okay.
simple thing you're posting, so I definitely recommend you to do bit R&D.
Sure. Sure.
So whoever not perform this task, please spare some time and please try to do this, guys. Why? Because couple of sessions later we are going to add another layer here. So please do that. Right? So here in today's session, first we are going to discuss about VPC peering. Then we are going to discuss about VPC endpoints. When coming to this VPC peering, it's this is designed to enable communication between multiple VPCs. So for example, you have VPC 1 in Mumbai region and you have another VPC that either it is in Mumbai region or it is in Northern Virginia region or it is in another account also. So in all these scenarios, if you want to enable communication between these, yes, we can enable communication by using an option called VPC peering. Right. So VPC peering is a non-transitive peering. It's a non-transitive peering. That means, so you have VPC 1. So let's assume this is VPC 1, this is VPC 2, and this is VPC 3. VPC 1 have communication with VPC 2. And VPC 2 also have communication with VPC 3. Now, can VPC 1 EC2 instance communicate with VPC 3? The answer is no. So, if it is a transitive peering, when A is equal to B equal to C, or when A is able to communicate with B, B is able to communicate with C, A can communicate with C. That's a transitive. But when coming to non-transitive, it is not going to communicate. That's a non-transitive. If you want to enable communication between this VPC 1 to VPC 3, you manually need to create another peering. Then only you can do that. Then only VPC 1 EC2 instance can communicate with VPC 3. Otherwise, via this VPC 2, it cannot communicate. You have an EC2 instance here. Yes, you can communicate VPC 1 EC2 instance. From the same EC2 instance, you can communicate with VPC 3 one also. But these two directly cannot communicate. Right? So that is a peering mechanism. So let me VPC peering is non-transitive peering. And we have a limitation here. Who is the requester and acceptor? So this we need to choose one as a requester, another one as an acceptor. So requester VPC and acceptor VPC should not contain same IP address range. Requester VPC and acceptor VPC should not contains same CIDR block or same CIDR range. If both contain same CIDR range, if you are enabling communication, it won't happen. Why? Because the IP conflict is going to happen. IP conflict means, for example, you created a network that with 192.168.0.0/16. Here also you created same. For one of the machine, you got an IP address 192.168.100. Like 100.1 IP address is allocated to one of the EC2 instance here. Same IP address, we have chances 100.1. So whenever in a network, both whenever you're trying to enable, it will treat it as a one network and communication between two networks. From outside world, some request came that need to be delivered to 100.1. To which EC2 instance it is going to deliver? Bit difficult to manage. So that's why the requester or acceptor should contain different CIDR block. It should not contain same range of IP address. Right. So here we need to grab some information. The requester IP address, requester IP, acceptor IP address, and in what region it is running, in what account it is running. That is. So now we need to grab from where to where you want to enable communication. But before that, I'll do one thing. I launch an EC2 instance in Mumbai region and another EC2 instance in Northern Virginia. I'll try to test the communication between these two. Later on, I'll create a peering and I'll test the communication. Right? So I'm going to take Windows Server 2016 base, T2 micro, and custom VPCs. Public subnet, ATOS and public IP address is enabled. Storage 30 gigs. This is my jump server. Then click on next. What are the security group custom VPC is this? Same one I'm going to use now. Okay. So now let me quickly launch an EC2 instance in private subnet. Windows Server 2016 base, T2 micro, custom VPCs, private subnet 1 that is in disabled state, public IP address, and this is private subnet instance. Then click on next, and I'm going to select existing security group, review, launch using an existing key pair. So I have an EC2 instance in public subnet as well as private subnet. Similarly, I will launch another EC2 instance in Northern Virginia. Launch instance. Here also I'm going to take Windows Server 2016 base, T2 micro, and I'm going with default VPC, and I'm going to choose one subnet, and public IP address I'm not going to enable. So whenever we have only private IP address, only internal communication is going to happen, right? So wantedly, I'm not going to assign any public IP address. Click on next, 30 gigs, tags. This is Northern Virginia instance. So I'm going to use a security group that opened with port number 3389 as it is a Windows one. Review launching using a key pair. And we must have this key pair. If you don't have this key pair, create a new one. I have access to this key pair, so I'm going to use the same one, launch instance. So now I have an EC2 instances, couple of instances here in Mumbai region and an EC2 instance in Northern Virginia. First, I'm going to get connected to jump server. Grabbing the public IP address, Windows R, MSTSC, given the public IP address, click on connect. Okay, so the default username is administrator and the password is click on connect, RDP client, get password, browse the key pair, decrypt the password. Here is the password, giving the password here and click on OK, give yes, and we got connected to this public subnet EC2 instance. This is a jump server. Now, from this jump server, I can connect to my private subnet instance. So for this private subnet instance, I don't have any public IP address. So I'm going to use private IP address. So I'm grabbing the private IP address. Within this EC2 instance, I'm going to give Windows R, MSTSC, then give the private IP address, then click on connect. So from my jump server, I'm able to connect to private subnet instance. So the reason is both are in same VPC, that we already know. So I got connected to my private subnet EC2 instance without any difficulty from my jump server. Okay, similarly, I have another EC2 instance in Northern Virginia. I want to get connected to this EC2 instance from my jump server. So let me give a try. So I'm taking MSTSC and I'm going to grab this Northern Virginia EC2 instance private IP address. Given that here, click on connect. It is trying to connect, and it's going to fail. Why? Because there is no communication. Same thing you can try to perform from private subnet instance also. See, I'm navigating to private subnet instance. See, this is my private subnet instance. Okay, no internet connectivity. So if you're trying to take MSTSC, given the private IP address, click on connect. It will try to connect, it's going to fail. Okay, so now I want to enable communication between these two VPCs. I hope everybody got the scenario, what I'm trying to perform. Now, let's navigate to VPCs of these. So now I'm in Mumbai region and this is my VPC. Here I want to enable connection. So here is a peering connection. Click on create peering connection. So as I mentioned, some information you required. So first of all, requester information and acceptor information. Requester VPC ID. So what is the VPC ID of this? So requester VPC ID is going to be this Mumbai region one. This is my VPC ID. Okay, then acceptor. What is the CIDR block? CIDR block means IP address range. So we know that 192.168.0.0/16. So then what is the region? So it is AP South -1 and this is US East 1. And is it in same account? So same account and this is also in same account. If both are in different account, you need to give 12-digit account ID. So here also you need to give 12-digit account ID you need to give. Okay, but here in our case, this not really required. Now let's navigate to Northern Virginia, grab the VPC ID and CIDR block. So here is the VPC where my instance is running. This is the VPC ID and CIDR block is 172.31.0.0/16. Both are different, so there is no issue, no conflict is happening, so we won't land into this particular issue. Okay, so now I'm navigating to Mumbai region. So but before that, whenever we navigate to peering connections, do we have any peering connections here in Northern Virginia? No. So let's navigate to Mumbai, click on create peering connection name. So VPC peering between Mumbai to Northern Virginia. Okay. So then for what, from what VPC? From my custom VPC. Then where is your another VPC? If it is another account, select this, give 12-digit account ID. In another account, in what region you have? Is it in same region or different region? You need to choose that here. So it's in my account only. Is it in the same region? Then go and pick another VPC. If it is in another region, select another region. Yes, my another VPC is in Northern Virginia. Then what is a VPC ID? Grab the VPC ID, give that VPC ID here. If you want to give any tags, you can give it here. Then click on create peering connection. So acceptor VPC, requester VPC, acceptor VPC, acceptor region. Click on create peering connection. Now a peering connection has been requested. Okay, then give OK. So peering connection got created, but what is the status? Pending acceptance. So where we need to accept this? So in Northern Virginia, we need to accept this. So here I'm in Northern Virginia. It is showing pending acceptance. Whenever we go to actions, accept request, reject request, delete this connection request. Okay. So here we don't have, why? Because he's a requester. So he is an acceptor. So click on accept request in Northern Virginia. So then click on yes, accept. Now peering connection status is going to set to active. But is it going to enable the communication? No, not really. To send and receive traffic across this VPC peering connection, you must add a route to the peered VPC in one or more of your VPC route tables. So we must modify the route tables, then only it's going to communicate each other. So click on close. Now let's navigate to route tables. Here as well, in both the regions you need to. Very simple logic is, in Mumbai region, we need to add an entry with Northern Virginia. In Northern Virginia, you need to add an entry with this Mumbai region cider block. Okay, so now, so to what are all these subnets you want to enable communication? For example, I have two public subnets, two private subnets. Okay, so I want to enable communication with the public subnets. Then navigate here, go to routes, edit routes. Now add a route. So we already have this local communication. Along with that local communication, now you want to enable communication with this another VPC. Grab that other VPC ID, give that here. Then go and choose the peering connection. So go with this peering connection. Click on save routes. Now, what are all the instances is associated? What are the subnets associated to this route table? These two subnets can communicate with another region VPC resources via this peering connection. So if you edit only public route, only these public subnet instances can communicate. If you edit private route, then navigate here, edit routes. This is NAT instance 1 removed. Get the same peering connection, select this, click on save routes. So this is only one-way communication. So in Northern Virginia also, whatever the route table you have, so my instance is running in default VPC in Northern Virginia. Navigate to routes, edit routes. So at moment, internet gateway is there and local route is there. Add a route. As we are in Northern Virginia, we need to give Mumbai region cider block, give that here, then go and choose this peering connection, select the peering connection, save routes. That's it. Peering connection has been established between both the VPCs. How we can test it? Navigate here. So now we are in public subnet instance or jump server. Earlier, whenever we are trying to connect to this, it's failed. Now click on connect. If communication is there, it is going to ask us to enter the username and password. See, it is asking for username and password. So now go here, browse the username and password, and you can get connected to it. So from where we are connecting? From Jump server. Let me try to test this connection from my private subnet EC2 instance. This is my private subnet EC2 instance where I don't have even internet connection also. Now, earlier also here it got failed. Now click on connect and asking for username and password. Administrator is a default username. Okay, again, we to minimize everything. Then browse the key pair, get password, browse, select not this key pair, pairing.pam, decrypt the password. Here is the password, and I'm going to give the password here. Click on OK. Then we will get connected to it. So how we are getting connected? It first we connected to Jump server. From that Jump server, we connected to private subnet EC2 instance. From that private subnet EC2 instance, we are trying to connect to another region VPC EC2 instance. Give yes, and we got connected here. So first we are in Jump server. This is a Jump server. From Jump server, I connected to private subnet instance. From that private subnet instance, I'm able to connect to this another region EC2 instance. So that means another region EC2 instance, we are able to communicate from our public subnet as well as private subnet. So that's all about VPC pairing. So any questions on this VPC pairing, guys?
Avinash, regarding this cedar block conflict, IP conflict, right? So when we are connecting it to a different network, so there will be possibility of this conflict, right? How to handle those scenarios?
See, whenever the conflict is there, we don't have any option to enable communication.
Okay.
So that we always take care, we are going to maintain this, whatever the VPC we are using, we maintain what CIDR block we are using. We should maintain that. If any conflict is happening, so both are going to be treated as a two individual network. There is no scenario to enable the communication.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Avinash.
Avinash, I missed yesterday's class, but without this pairing, you cannot set up a jump server properly, right? Because it wouldn't communicate to your private subnet.
See, without Jump server, you cannot communicate with private subnet instances. So you always need to go via Jump server only, and Jump server always is going to run in public subnet. So now, yeah, on top of that, what is that question?
My question was this VPC pairing, right? Like just creating the jump server doesn't ensure communication. And like on top of that, you'll have to come and create this pairing for it to communicate with the private subnet, correct?
Okay, I'll clarify that. So if both the resources are in same VPC,
Okay, got
if
it.
your resources both, your public subnet is here, your private subnet is here. So you have a Jump server here, you have your private subnet instances here. So as both are running in same VPC, no need to depend on this pairing. So directly you can connect to Jump server. From Jump server, you can connect to private subnet instance. But if your resource is running in another VPC, this is another EC2 instance. In this case, yes, you must enable VPC peering between these VPCs. Then only you can connect from here, or these two instances can communicate.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Now, the next topic is VPC endpoints. And VPC peering, how much data we transfer from one region to another region. Based on that, we are going to get charged, right? So just test the communication, and if you are able to perform, then please delete it. So don't try to transfer like GBs of the data from one region to another region. Even that cost also very less, 0.01 cent per GB. I mean $0.01 per GB. Okay, if we have NAT gateway, don't we need jump server? See, NAT gateway is designed to provide the internet connection. Jump server dedicatedly designed to take or designed to enable communication with private subnet EC2 instances. So if you want to use NAT and jump server for the same machine, yes, you can do that, but that is not the best practice. If you want to use your NAT instance as your jump server, yes, definitely you can do that, but it is not at all best practice, Pavitra. Okay, so now I'm deleting this peering connection. Okay, it got deleted. So now, so let's take a scenario that is a very common scenario we face. Like you have a private subnet EC2 instance. You have a private subnet EC2 instance, and that private subnet EC2 instance need to access S3 bucket, or it need to access DynamoDB, or it need to access any other AWS services, but you don't have any NAT instance. So can this communicate with S3? So here is my private subnet EC2 instance. This is my private subnet EC2 instance. If I go here, if I take command prompt, is AWS CLI tools got installed? No. Now I'll do one thing. I'll install AWS CLI tools here. So disable IEHC as I want to download something, or else I think I have that in my downloads folder, AWS CLI. I'm copying to my private subnet EC2 instance. So this NAT, VPC endpoints designed to enable communication between AWS resources when we don't have internet and all. So we have an EC2 instance in private subnet, and that private subnet don't have internet access. That means no NAT gateway or NAT instance. We don't have any NAT gateway or NAT instance. So then we are not going to have any internet access, right? But the requirement is, but from this EC2 instance, we need to, from this EC2 instance, we need to get or put data to an S3 bucket. So without internet, can we access S3? If you associate a role also, it won't happen. So then how we can? By using VPC endpoint, we can enable. So earlier, this one we used to call as private links, but this is not a valid one. So, but you can call it as a private link also. So earlier we used to call it as a private link, and Amazon renamed it to VPC endpoint. So it enables communication between your private subnet resources and to AWS resources. So now, okay, it is still copying. Okay, it got copied. So now installing this. See, do I have internet in this private subnet? No. So let Disable IEHC and show you that I don't have internet in this private subnet. So I'm installing the CLI tools. Okay, CLI tools got installed successfully. Now let's close this terminal and I'm trying to access google.com and however it's going to fail. I'm going to open command prompt and AWS space -- version, and there you can see we have AWS CLI 2.1.29. Okay, AWS CLI is there in my machine now and no internet access here. Okay, so now as AWS CLI got installed, what I'm going to do, I'm going to associate a role to this EC2 instance. This IP address is 113.88. Okay, so that is a private subnet instance 113.88. So now I'm navigating to actions, security, modify IAM role, then choose the role. So you can go and pick S3 full access, then save. Otherwise, you can just go and associate admin full admin access also. So now if we go here, if you are trying to give AWS space S3 space LS, it is trying to access, and it's going to fail. So manually cancel this, right? You need to wait. The canceling operation is going to take a lot of time. So AWS space S3 space LS --region --debug. When I am trying to access this, AWS space S3 space LS --region AP South -1. I missed that -debug. So now it got the temporary credentials and all, and it is waiting at an error message that starting new HTTPS connection s3.ap south 1 Amazon AWS.com :443. So it got stopped there. It is trying to, and it got stopped there. Right. So the reason is no internet access here. So when there is no internet access in your private subnet instances, you cannot communicate with S3. Okay, now by using this gateway endpoints, I want to enable this communication. So now you can try to cancel this. Okay, so otherwise close, open a new terminal. Now I'm going to create an endpoint. Click on create endpoint. So for what AWS service you want to provide? I want to provide access S3. Click on S3. So you can find gateway endpoint. So I selected that gateway endpoint here. com.amazonaws.ap south -1.s3 gateway endpoint. Scroll down for what VPC? For my custom VPC. Then to what subnet? So if you want to provide S3 access to your private subnets, go and select that. So for public subnet, yeah, we have internet access here. So we can just like, whenever you're giving a like associated role and whenever you're trying to access, it will access. But from this private subnet only the problem is. Okay, so to that private subnets, I'm going to. So both the private subnets is here. I'm going to select, then scroll down, full access, click on create endpoint. Now, one private link is going to create. So this is a private link and the root tables. So these two subnets are in this particular root table. So here is a root table, private roots. Under roots, we got a new root. See, this is a new root. VPCE, VPC endpoint. So PL, -78, PL stands for private link. So this is a private link. So whenever these two subnet EC2 instances, whenever it is trying to access anything S3, these names and all is going to resolve within these IP addresses without having internet access also. Now, as I created that private link, I'm trying to access AWS space S3 space ls --- region AP South -1. There you can see I'm able to see all my S3 buckets. I'm able to see all my S3 buckets. But do I have internet here? Let me go and let me test that. Google.com. Do I have internet? No. Bing search engine also not working, but I'm able to AWS space S3 space ls S3:// Avinash. I have given that bucket and there you can see I'm able to see all the data. Okay, so if I want to copy something, AWS space S3 space CP S3:/ Avinash / putty.msi. So then I want to download to this location. There you can see it got downloaded. So you can go to this particular path and you can verify dir and there you can see putty.msi file got downloaded here in this location. Okay, so without internet also we are able to access S3 resources. But again, associating a role is mandatory. Associating role is mandatory. Otherwise, configuring a CLI user is mandatory. But internet is not mandatory. So now we have accessed S3. Similarly, can we access, for example, AWS space EC2 describe -instances -region AP South -1? Can we enable this? Can we communicate? No, again. Why? Because the endpoint we created, that can resolve only S3 service. Now EC2 also need to work in that. So for that also you need to create another endpoint. So for that look for EC2. So then EC2 AP South 1 -EC2. So then for what VPC? My custom VPC. To what subnet? Private subnets. Then enable this endpoint. So then scroll down, click on create endpoint. So then it is going to create. See, this gateway endpoint is free. S3 is free. But remaining endpoints like, EC2, all those endpoints, per hour we are going to get charged. For every single hour we are going to get charged. So please create this gateway endpoint and you can test it. Apart from that, so please ignore remaining endpoints. And this is very, very important for your certification exam. Even in interview also, you can definitely expect one question from this. So sometimes, so we are going to get like, scenario where you have MongoDB that is running over the cloud and you have private subnet EC2 instance. You have private subnet EC2 instance without internet connectivity and all. But you need to access that cloud hosted MongoDB. For that, you need to create a private link. So endpoint connection for MongoDB. set up a private endpoint. So you need to go and first you need to have that link, and they're going to give the same thing. Process is going to be same. So check AWS private link. You need to go to network access. You need to create an endpoint. So such type of third-party services also. Such type of third-party services. MongoDB is a third-party application. It is not hosted or not running in AWS. So, but we need to go and we need to get the entry information. So then we need to create this, right? So that also sometimes we are going to perform, right? So AWS private link feature, what exactly the private link is, that is nothing but endpoint. This is what it is, right? So I hope you got the concept. Right, so another certification question. So in our last session, we discussed about NAT instance and NAT gateway, right? But if you are using IPv6, if we are using IPv6, so instead of NAT gateway and NAT instance, we need to use egress only internet gateway. We need to use egress only internet gateway instead of NAT gateway. NAT gateway works only with IPv4, right? This is basically important certification question. So that's why I mentioned it here. So with this topic, we have done with the VPC. We have couple of things, that is VPC, how we can access private subnet directly from our local machine, VPN connection. So how we can create a VPN connection and how to access all your resources, like your local resource. How we can access all AWS resources as our local resource by using this VPN connection. That is one topic. And another topic is AWS Transit Gateway. This is basically two advanced option. I'm going to share a video. And if you guys are okay to go through video for this VPN connection, I'll share that video. If you want me to demonstrate here, I can do that. So please reply on this. This one I'm going to share a video. You want me to demonstrate, or are you good to share a video, and are you okay to go through that video? If you're okay, then we can see some certification questions. Okay, I got a response directly. Share a video. Any other?
Yeah, Avinash, share a video and you can go through the questions.
Okay, so then please go through that video. If you have any questions, then I can show you that tomorrow, or so 1 week they are going to give under free tier eligibility. That is the one. So you can practice and you can delete that once you're done with that. So another one is transit gateway. This is bit advanced topic. You might feel like, bit complex in this, but just go through this video, and you mentioned that, like, you didn't part of the initial configuration and all, right? So that is a transit gateway. So go through these two. Now let's jump in and let's discuss that VPC diagrams, and we will go through some questions. So VPC diagrams. Okay. So here is one of the VPC diagram where this is like, basic VPC diagram where we have an AWS environment, and within the AWS environment we have a VPC. Okay, this solid black color line is a VPC. Within that, they are deploying the resources in different availability zone. This availability zone A, this availability zone B. And if you observe this route table, so both are public route tables, or both are public subnets or private subnets. So we have a route table called main route table.
Private subnets.
Both are contain 0.0.0.0/0 via internet gateway. IZW stands for internet gateway. So to this main route table, we have internet gateway, and both subnets, default subnet 1 and default subnet 2, both are added to this main route table. So whenever we have entry via internet gateway, is it a public subnet or private subnet?
Public subnet.
Public subnet. So technically both are public subnets. So this diagram explaining that. And internet gateway is deployed at VPC level, and it is available for both the subnets. So internet gateway is providing internet connectivity. So this is initial. On our first day, I created a default, by using wizard I created one VPC. So technically this is the same. So now this one, if you observe this VPC, here in a AWS environment, we have a VPC. Within that VPC, we have a public subnet and private subnet. These are the names he is using. But if you observe, we have an internet gateway and route table is there. And we have deployed a NAT gateway. So that NAT gateway, what is the NAT gateway purpose? It provides internet connection to our private subnet resources. Now, do these database servers have internet connection now? Yes. Why? Because we have a NAT gateway. And where that NAT gateway is running? The NAT gateway is running in public subnet only. So technically it is going to take a internet from internet gateway, but it is going to provide internet to all the database servers according to this route table. So this is custom route table. This is main route table. You can either, technically this is our private route table. Private route table, public route table. This public route table contains internet gateway. Is it associated with both the subnets? No, only one line is there, that for public subnet. So this public subnet will get internet connectivity from this internet gateway. And this private subnet have a route, local route, so both can communicate. But this NAT gateway ID is giving internet to all this. So whatever the NAT gateway you deployed, that NAT gateway ID we need to give it here. So this is another VPC diagram. Okay, I'll share this, and this is the network flow and all. So initially, first it comes to internet gateway, then it comes to router and how it is associated to route table. Then it comes to network ACL, the topic we discussed in our Saturday session. It evaluated this network ACL, then it come to security group, then only the traffic go to your EC2 instance. If it is not allowed at network ACL, it won't come. If you don't have an entry in route table, it won't come. If you have security group and you haven't opened that port here, it won't reach the EC2 instance. So 3 layers: security group, network ACL, route table, then internet gateway, then to outside world. This is a flow. And this is one of the diagram where we call this network diagram as a sandwich environment. Sandwich environment means here in our private subnet we have an EC2 instance. That EC2 instance is able to communicate with elastic load balancer in a public subnet. Then on top of load balancer we are going to apply WAF, web application firewall, that we will talk later in our security module. Then on top of that, we are going to create another load balancer. Then to outside users, we are going to deliver. So basically this mechanism now, we are going to call it as a sandwich environment. Between two ELBs, we have one web application firewall. So that's why we call it as a sandwich, right? So we will discuss about this WAF in our coming sessions, not now. So this is the another diagram. I'll paste these diagrams in our Slack, in our GitHub. I'll share that. And so we have some questions here on the VPC. So I'm expecting you to answer these questions. A solution architect is designing a high performance computing job that runs on EC2 instance in private subnet. To allow the application to download patches, the infrastructure must be altered to allow instances to access external endpoints. Any changes to the infrastructure must involve minimal ongoing systems management effort. So what will allow the EC2 instances to access the endpoints while meeting these requirements? You have a private subnet EC2 instance. It need to download some patches. It need to access some external endpoints. So for that purpose, he need internet connectivity. So how you are going to provide internet here? That's what question is asking.
Not good.
NAT gateway. Yes. So he's clearly mentioning your EC2 instances in private subnet, and to download some patches, from where we are going to download the patches? From internet only, right? From official website only, right? So he's directly not mentioning, okay, you need internet to private subnet instance, what resource you are going to depend on. He's not going to ask you like that. So the same thing, but in different manner, right? So this one, you need to answer this. However, in similar manner, we are going to create our RDS instance in our tomorrow session, database module, right? But I want you to answer this. Take a minute or two, take 2 minutes, try to understand this, then answer. Similar scenario we have configured in our load balancer session, in our elastic load balancer.
First one, create a network ACL on the web server subnet and allow HTTP inbound and MS SQL outbound.
Any other? Network ACL basically for outside world, right? But here, both the resources, web servers and database servers, both are in my AWS environment only. So in that scenario, we no need to depend on network ACL. B. Lot of answers. B. Right. So open HTTPS port of security group of your web server, set source to 0.0.0. That is absolutely right. So then open MySQL port on database security group and attach it to MySQL instance and set the source to web server security group. Perfect. So B is a valid answer here. So network ACL basically it's for outside world. That is a difference here. So you need to choose B as the answer. And that's how we are going to configure in our coming session. So here is another question. An application stack includes an elastic load balancer in a public subnet, a fleet of EC2 instances in auto-scaling group and Amazon RDS MySQL cluster. Users connect to the application from the internet. The application servers and database servers must be secure. So how you are going to design? See, all are valid answers here. But he is talking about secured. Which one is the most secured? So among this, which one you are going to select? Which one is the more secure here?
Let's see.
B.
As I mentioned, all are valid answers, but I go with the B. So why? Because if you are placing some EC2 instance as a public facing, so someone may hit that EC2 instances, right? So if you recall our last task, see here where my web servers are running, it's in private subnet. I can take another private subnet and I can place my database servers there. For external world, I'm giving this load balancer and they're able to access. Even through if your web servers is in private subnet, end customer, outside world customer, he is able to access. So you can run same thing in here in this layer also, but as he is talking about more secured option, so we can run our web server in private subnet, database server in private subnet, and point your web server to load balancer that is running in public subnet and deliver it to outside world. So this is a task I have given in our previous session. So when coming to this question, yes, go with the B as an answer. And this one, question itself will lengthy one, but logic is very simple. So your EC2 instance is running in multiple availability zones behind an application load balancer. Load balancer is in public subnet. EC2 instances are in private subnet and must not be accessible from the internet. That's fine as it is, in private subnet, it cannot. The EC2 instances must call external services on the internet. If one AZ becomes unavailable, the remaining EC2 instances must still be able to call the external services. So then what is the service you are going to use here? First of all, what is his basic requirement?
Internet.
Internet to private subnet EC2 instances.
Right.
So go with the NAT. You go with the NAT instance or NAT gateway?
NAT gateway.
NAT gateway, obviously. So two options, A and D. And he is talking about high availability for that NAT gateway. So you can create two NAT gateways and associate to, you can associate both also. So now, as he is talking about, he's clearly mentioning if one AZ becomes unavailable, the remaining EC2 instances must still. So create a NAT gateway in each availability zone, basically public subnets. We need to So update the route table for each private subnet to direct internet bound traffic to the NAT gateway 0.0.0.0. That's what private internet bound traffic means. So add 0.0.0.0 to NAT gateway. So go with the D as the answer here. If he don't mention this particular line, if one AZ becomes unavailable and all, then go and choose as the answer. Right. So this is another question. And this one, very simple logic. You just need to understand a bit and how you are going to choose. Simple logic only.
B and C.
B and D. B and D.
Yes. So here the scenario is whoever is sitting in the corporate network, only they should get connected to Bastion host. Bastion host is nothing but our jump server. Okay. So only they should get connected to jump server. Whoever is connected to the jump server, only they should get connected to the web servers. Okay, so in that case, limit access to users originating from the corporate network. So create a Bastion host with security group rule that only allow traffic from the corporate network. So open port number 22 or 3389, give corporate IP address. So only whoever sitting in the corporate network, they can connect to Bastion host. And then whoever connected to the Bastion host, only they should access. So web servers cannot have SSH direct from internet. So it's a private subnet technically. So you're using, that's why Bastion host. Web servers resides in a private subnet. He is clearly stating that. So then configure web server security group to allow SSH traffic from the Bastion host. So what are the web servers you have? Open port number 22, give Bastion host security group. That's it. B and D is a valid answer here. So another question. Solution architect is designing VPC instance in private subnet must be able to establish IPv6 traffic to the internet. So then how we can? Right. Egress only internet gateway. As I mentioned, IPv6. So egress only internet gateway. This is another question. An application server need to be in private subnet without access to internet. And the solution must receive and update files to an S3 bucket. And what resource you required here? You have private subnet. From that private subnet, don't have internet connectivity and it need to access S3. Then
A.
endpoint. You need endpoint, right? A security team reviewing their company's VPC flow log and found that traffic is being directed to the internet. So the application in the VPC uses Amazon EC2 instance for compute and S3 for storage. The company goal is to eliminate internet access and allow the application to continue to function. So what changes should be made in the VPC before updating the route table? This is what scenario based question means. See, yes. See, basically this question and this question is same. But here he is talking like, scenario based, where he have observed some logs and whatever the instance at moment, it have internet access and it is able to access S3. But he don't want to route any traffic via internet, but that application, that EC2 instance application need to communicate with S3. So how we can? Simple, create a VPC endpoint for Amazon EC2 access. So then that the EC2 instances can access S3 by using endpoint, not over the internet. If you are using NAT gateway, still it gives internet connectivity. It goes via internet connectivity. So no use. So VPC endpoint for S3 access or EC2. Oh, come on. The answer is B, not C. Sorry. So create a VPC endpoint from Amazon S3 access. So then the EC2 instances can communicate with S3 bucket. So the answer is B. Right. So this is again same VPC endpoint only. Right. So these are questions related to this VPC, and whoever is not perform this task, please spare some time and please do that. So why? Because we are going to perform remaining task, the final task on top of this only. So please spare some time and please try to do this. You can use classic load balancer or application load balancer to perform this. First create, if you don't know what exactly this task, please go through the previous video. Final 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you will come to know what exactly every component represents. Right? So whoever not attended Saturday session, please go through the previous session regarding video. We have done with VPC. We are going to start database. So database is also a small module that we can complete within 3 sessions. So then 80% of the course is completed. Application services 1 session, like 2 sessions, application services, security services, a couple of sessions, and then what exactly DevOps and its culture is. So by 16th or by 17th, we can close this course. If required, by 20th, we can close this course. Right? So please spare some time and please practice, guys. And don't keep any resource in running state. Please terminate everything. So VPC won't cost us anything apart from NAT gateway. So if you want to practice endpoint, so please practice with the S3 endpoint. Don't create any interface endpoints. It's going to cost us for every single hour. Go with the gateway endpoint. That is nothing but S3, right? So please try to complete the task which I gave in our last session. So any questions before closing this?
Yes, Avinash, I have a question. Like the NAT gateway and the NAT instance, basically it's used for allow internet in private network. Okay.
Yes.
So what is the advantage of this NAT instance? It is give the means we can control the more security. That's why.
See, NAT instance we don't use.
Okay.
First point, NAT instance we don't use. Why? Because initially Amazon introduced NAT instance mechanism, but you need to take care about EC2 instance. You need to take care about security groups, source or destination check, and you need to pay for the EC2 instance, how many hours it is running, and you need to pay for data transfer. To not get into all those issues, Amazon discontinued NAT instance. But now, as NAT gateway is going to cost us, I have explained NAT instance mechanism.
Okay, so in real environment, it's
We
a
don't
NAT
use,
gateway is used.
we don't use NAT instance. We use NAT gateway only in real environment.
And I have one more question, but it is on the RDS. So
We
can
will,
I?
I will take that question after 2 more sessions.
Okay.
So any other questions, guys? All right. So that's it for today's session. See you again tomorrow. Thank you, guys.